Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Phi Beta Delta Epsilon Upsilon's chapter presentation of Stillwater's Afghan family project moving forward. This is the second of two webinars that we've held talking about the resettlement of the Afghan families in Stillwater. This one will go into how are we doing and where are we going from here. I'm very pleased to present our guests today, Associate Provost and Dean, School of the Global Studies and Partnerships, Dean Randy Kluver. Dia Abdo, she is the founder and director of Every Campus a Refuge. She is the Lincoln Financial Professor of English for Guilford College. And Gabby Nicholas, Assistant Resident Community Educator, Crowd, for the Afghan Family Project. And this will be moderated by myself. I am Lynn Berady, President of Phi Beta Delta and Department Head of Design, Housing, and Merchandising in the College of Education and Human Sciences. Welcome to all of our guests and all of our viewers. I'd like to start out by asking Dean Kluver if he has a few words to say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Berady. I've learned how to pronounce your name. I've got one of those weird names too, so I get it. Thank you to Phi Beta Delta for organizing this, to you, Lynn, and to you, Tina. I know that you've done a lot of work, and the Phi Beta Delta network has been tremendously helpful this past 6 months as we've been engaged in this. And if I haven't had a chance to talk to all of you personally, just know how grateful I am for your support and all the ways that you've supported this effort, both big and small. I do want to just give the first lead out with Dia Abdo. Dia, as you heard, is at Guilford College, and she is the founder of this network called Every Campus a Refuge. Early when we got started in this, Dia reached out to me as she had heard about our efforts here, and it's been just so incredibly encouraging and useful to us as we've tried to navigate some of these things. And so when this panel idea started circulating, I wanted to make sure that she was included because I see her as really the trailblazer, the person who's really had the first vision for a way a university campus could assist in these larger refugee resettlement efforts. She is getting ready to push out a book. I think it's coming out in September, Dia, on the refugee experience in America that I really look forward to reading. And so, Dia, thank you for being here today. And I'd like for you, if you wouldn't mind, lead us off by talking a little bit about your vision that drives the formation of ECAR and the way you've seen that play out recently across the nation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. And I want to say that I appreciate your description of me as the trailblazer, but you had no idea that ECAR existed when you all did this, which suggests to me that it is entirely a common sense issue to leverage college and university resources to support human beings who are coming into our community. And so the fact that it occurred to you as a natural thing just shows us how easy it is to actually imagine and see colleges and universities as cities that are capable of doing this work. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. I'm Dia Abdo, as Randy said, and I'm very grateful for this invitation. Randy and I have had many conversations over the last few months, and I've learned so much from all of your work. And thank you to Dr. Berady for this invitation as well and for moderating the conversation. So I am of a Palestinian background. My parents were both Palestinian refugees, and I was born and raised in Jordan. And I grew up on my grandmother's stories of how hard it was for her to be a refugee, even though she was in a country right across the river and they spoke the same language and ate almost the same food, although Palestinian food is much better than Jordanian. Still, they felt like they were out of place. And so I grew up on her nostalgia and her homesickness and her lack of belonging. And so when I came to the US as an international student on an F1 visa, and I was here during September 11th and also experienced the xenophobia and Islamophobia and immigrant phobia of that time, it occurred to me that we could do so much better on our colleges and university campuses to support the integration and to foster a sense of belonging for newcomers who are coming into our community. In 2015, I was in North Carolina. I'm a professor at Guilford College, which is a small Quaker institution in Greensboro. And I was minding my business as a professor of English when that image of the little boy, Aylan Kurdi, broke our collective hearts, right? That little boy who drowned with his mother and brother. And at that time, people were scrambling to respond, just like we're scrambling to respond now to the Afghan evacuee crisis, and we're scrambling to respond to the Ukrainian crisis. Folks were scrambling to respond to the hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees who were looking for a home or a second home. And Pope Francis, in his wisdom, called on every parish in Europe to host a refugee family. It's the concept of radical hospitality, opening our communities to others, to the stranger. And in my language, in Arabic, the word campus is haram, which literally means a sanctuary. And so I thought, oh, the Pope is also calling to me and to all of us who exist on small parishes like colleges and universities to do that work. And so I really just walked into my president's office in that September of 2015 and said, Jane, I'd like a house on our campus to host a refugee family. And she said, sure. And we have been hosting refugees on Guilford's campus for the last 7 years. We're currently hosting 16 Afghan evacuees, but we typically host 1 or 2 families at a time. Typically, they're larger families, but we've also hosted single cases and couples as well. So at the moment, we're hosting a 7-member family and 11 Afghan men. And so since that time, you know, it started with Guilford. It started small. Let's be a parish. Let's do this work. We have the resources. We have the facilities. Most importantly, beyond the housing, which is a key piece, we also have the human resources, the labor force that's hungry to help. And I'm sure you felt that dramatically in how the community has just reached out to you saying, what can we do to support our Afghan allies? And then I realized, you know, the Pope called on every parish. I should call on every college to do that. And so for the last 7 years, ECAR, Every Campus a Refuge, which I founded in 2015, its mission is to partner every college or university in this country with their refugee resettlement agency to host refugees on campus grounds and support them in their resettlement. And our vision is to really create a sustainable infrastructure for refugee resettlement, thousands of them, because there are 4,000 colleges and universities in this country. If each one of them hosted 1 family at a time, it would do wonders for a refugee resettlement system. Now, I don't know if you know, but a refugee resettlement program needs help. So there are 28 million designated refugees in the world who can be resettled. The world resettles less than 1% each year. The US typically accepts around 100,000 until the last administration, which decimated the refugee resettlement program, and the numbers plummeted. So that when the Afghan evacuee crisis happened in August, and 75,000 Afghan evacuees were here on military bases, there wasn't the infrastructure to support their integration, and there wasn't the community support that used to be, and also the Refugee Resettlement Agency infrastructure to support their resettlement. And so we scrambled, right? And the goal for Every Campus of Refuge is that we don't scramble anymore, that we build a scalable, sustainable infrastructure where across this country, every college or university can do this work. And the way it works is that you partner with the Refugee Resettlement Agency and you co-sponsor a refugee family that's coming into your area. You host them on your campus for a period of time. These resources, housing and access to college facilities and amenities is free of charge. The families, while they're on your campus, avail themselves of the library, of career services. We hosted an artist on our campus, and he was able to use our art department supplies and an art studio, and then he created work that we exhibited at a gallery on our campus. And I keep telling people, where in the world is there housing and a gallery except on a college campus, right? And so that's how diverse we are in terms of our resources. We're resource rich. The point of ECAR is really to leverage underutilized resources. And you would be surprised, or maybe not, to know that a lot of colleges and universities do have housing that sometimes sits empty for a few months. And refugees are the perfect population to support with this effort, because when refugees come, they receive a $1,000 stipend per person forever. Like that's the only stipend they get. It's $1,000. And they have to pay back their flight. So their plane ticket that brought them to this country, they have to pay that back. That $1,000 is used for housing, it's used for furniture, it's used for food. It's spent sometimes before people land. And landlords often don't want to rent to refugees because refugees don't yet have social security numbers. They don't have credit backgrounds. They don't have a job. They don't have pay stubs. And so they can't find affordable and safe housing upon arrival. But they're the people who find jobs very quickly. I always say refugees are the most resilient, resourceful people you'll ever meet, because they're the people who made it, right? They've walked with their children for thousands of miles. They want to succeed, right? They want to find jobs quickly. They want to make money. They want to set themselves up. And so a housing period of 6 to 8 months is really ideal. Every family that we've hosted has been ready to move off our campus at the 6-month mark. And we've been able to support them into their successful integration into Greensboro. Now, ECAR has spread across this country and new chapters are joining. Old Dominion University has just joined. Agnes Scott has just revitalized their chapter in Atlanta. There are other campuses that are in the process, but campuses in Pennsylvania, in New York, in Florida, and in California are ECAR chapters. The impact of this work is immense. So we've done impact studies that show that refugees who participate in what we call a resettlement campus, right, a campus that does resettlement, experience a greater sense of belonging and greater financial stability because they don't spend their stipend, they save their stipend and they take it with them when they leave. And we found that students who volunteer and work in this, because the people who do case management in the case on your campus, the volunteers are faculty, students, and staff. It's the same at ECAR chapters. They experience greater knowledge and understanding of refugee and immigrant issues and are more likely to advocate for refugees and immigrants. At Guilford College, I also decided that it would be great to institutionalize ECAR in such a way that no president can get rid of it at the college. And so we've actually developed a minor where students get credit for hosting refugees on Guilford's campus and supporting them in their resettlement. And you don't have to have a minor on a campus to do this, but you can have courses, and everybody has courses that teach some kind of immigration issue or refugee issue, where students who are taking this course could also participate in hosting a family on a campus and get credit for doing that work. And for me, a course like this or a minor like this really talks the talk and walks the walk when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? It's an opportunity for students who are not able to do study abroad because of the pandemic or because of cost to do a kind of study abroad at home, right? So it's a global international approach to studying local issues. For me, it's also an inverted service learning model. We're really good at training our students and then sending them to our partner organizations in the world. But what if we did the reverse, right? What if we brought people to our campus and the students did the work on our campus? So there's a lot of really meaningful ways in which this can be curricularized and institutionalized as part of the educational, and it's very educational. I mean, the students not only get credit for doing this work, but learn a great deal about a global issue at the local level. I admire a great deal what OSU is doing. I keep talking about OSU everywhere I go, because to me, what you have done is not only supported allies at a time of great need and met the moment in truly remarkable ways, but you're also changing the demographic of Stillwater. And I keep telling Randy, I mean, what you all are doing is literally enriching the diversity of our country in ways that the refugee resettlement program has sadly not been set up to do, right? There are refugee resettlement hubs around this country, and refugees tend to go to those refugee resettlement hubs. But what if we reimagined where refugees go, right? How differently could this country look just in terms of its demographics if we imagined colleges and universities as places where resettlement happens? So you all are doing the work. Part of what I'm trying to convince Randy to do and OSU is to be part of the ECAR network so that you continue to do this at a different level. So right now you're hosting, how many families are you hosting, Randy? Can you remind me again?
Randy, we can't hear you.
We have 70 in Stillwater, 42
Wow.
on campus.
That's amazing, right? And it's wonderful, but I'm not sure if it's sustainable. So ECAR really hosts one family at a time and focuses in deep ways on that family. And so the goal is hopefully for OSU to join the ECAR family, where there's a lot of support for the ECAR network, a lot of support for the ECAR campuses, including funding support, but also curricular and co-curricular support. And so, you become part of a network where we assist you with implementation and also best practices. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm just looking forward to hearing all the details about what's happening at, on your campus.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting, and I'm eager to get to the question section so I can ask you some more questions about what you're doing. Dean Kluver, why don't I call on you next to give us a little more Stillwater perspective?
Sure. Thank you so much, Lynn. I've got just a few slides that kind of captures where we're at. Let me do the share screen thing here. And okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not going to be in slide screen mode, but you can see. First, I just want to give an update of where we are, what's happened. As I just mentioned, we do have 70 Afghans who have come to Stillwater, 42 in on-campus housing. Right now, the biggest high-profile event is the ESL instruction, which is being conducted by the English Language and Intercultural Center. I can't applaud the staff of the ELIC enough. They have really stepped up. This was not in their contract, and yet they have really stepped up and done a phenomenal job with completely retooling their curriculum in so many ways. They're offering ESL instruction for most of the adults. There are a few adults here in Stillwater who already have sufficient English that they're not really, they don't really need the ELIC. They've also worked with Stillwater Public Schools to create the transition effort. So all of the children who come in to Stillwater spend about 3 weeks in the Wes Watkins Center learning protocols and learning how to line up and what's expected in Will Rogers School, which is where they all transition to. The CCEOK, the Catholic Charities staff, are here 3 days a week doing office hours, virtual or really in-person office hours, so that they've got access to the Afghan families. The Wes Watkins Center has become the hub for a host of other activities, including legal screenings, eye clinics, all kinds of things that are happening. Just because it's close to the housing, it's close to the mosque, it's close to the school. So it's just a very convenient place to locate all these events. We've deployed multiple campus resources. We've talked in the past about the transportation, library. A number of the Afghans have found on-campus employment, and others are interviewing even as we speak for opportunities across campus. We did have 2 students enroll this semester. They were settled in Stillwater because they expressed a desire to come to OSU. And so we've got them enrolled now. We're very pleased that the state regents have agreed to give in-state tuition to these Afghans. We had to make an appeal to them, and the provost team handled that and dealt with the state regents. And we're very, very pleased that the Afghans have been given in-campus or in-state tuition approval. I can't say enough about the broader OSU community involvement. We've got students, faculty, staff. Many of the members of Phi Beta Delta have been very engaged in this effort, and it's been just phenomenal. There's been so much support. We actually haven't been able to utilize everybody in the way that we wanted to. Retirees, faculty and staff retirees have been integral to this. And so although it's been a community effort with Catholic Charities in the lead, it's got this huge OSU orange thumbprint on the effort. And I don't think it could have been anything like it is without the involvement of the entire OSU community. We have just in the last couple of weeks created a scholarship fund set up at the foundation. Some more messaging will be coming out about that, but we're hoping to create a substantial scholarship so all of the Afghans of student age can come to OSU. Even with in-state tuition, it's still quite expensive to think about a university education. And so we have a number of students who were previously students or maybe had even graduated from a university in Afghanistan who would like to come and do graduate school or undergraduate here at OSU. We've also been involved at the broader national level. We're a founding member of the Welcome Campus Network. This was part of the Welcome Network that was created immediately after the fall of Kabul. Dr. Schramm, our president, was approached by the president of UT El Paso, Heather Wilson, who set up this network and has invited about 30 campuses nationwide to be a part of that. And so we've been very involved in that. We've also been very active in the APOU, Afghanistan Working Group. I'm in weekly conversations with universities across the nation who are doing stuff. And although it does, in fact, look like we've done a lot, and I think we have, there's some universities that have just really raised the bar. Arizona State University has done amazing stuff. They accepted in something like 70 students from the Asian University of Women and gave them full ride scholarships before they knew how they were going to pay for it. And I still don't think they figured out how they're going to pay for it. Michigan State, a guy named Kurt Richter at Michigan State had a wheat research institute in Afghanistan. And when Kabul fell, Michigan State literally chartered a plane and went and picked up all their employees and their families and brought them out. And they've just now arrived. I was in a phone call with Kurt earlier today, and they've just now arrived in the US. And so there's some amazing work that campuses are doing that's I've learned a lot from. And then, of course, I've already mentioned Dia and ECAR and the conversations that she's facilitated with campuses across the United States. And so we have really learned a lot about this. Next steps, where are we now? Number one, we're looking at the end of Catholic Charities' contract with the State Department to handle this. They will essentially fold up operations around May 3rd, I believe. And at that point, all the Afghans here are without a formal network or institution or organization to oversee them and to continue to provide the services they need. Legal services, medical, so on and so forth. So we're looking very closely, how do we do that? Is this a role that OSU should play? Stillwater has never handled refugees before, particularly at this level. And so we don't have an organization like Oklahoma City has the Sparrow Project or other cities, larger cities have these resources. So we're looking at, do we provide that? Is this something that OSU does? We're pursuing a number of options there. We of course can't do it without the resources and the funding. So that's what we're looking at right now. And we're looking at that May 3rd deadline as sort of a cliff that we don't want to fall off. And we certainly don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that the families don't fall through the cracks when Catholic Charities is no longer providing that set of services. Students, a number of the folks who are already in Stillwater have indicated their plan to enroll at OSU in the fall. Now that the in-state tuition issue is settled, we've got others who are in Tulsa and Oklahoma City who are asking about coming to OSU. And so we're trying to facilitate what would that look like. We're also talking with a group called the Yada Hakim Foundation, who's linked up with another organization called the Afghan Futures Fund. They've identified about 200 Afghan students who were previously at the American University of Afghanistan, who are now outside of Afghanistan. They're trying to bring them to the US, and they've asked OSU to consider bringing some of those students. And so that could possibly bring a group of students in the fall. ECAR, I think that we've learned so much from this effort, and I, like Dia, have become convinced that universities are ideal places to look at this kind of process. And so we want to link up more closely with ECAR and see what this could be long term for Oklahoma State. I got to tell you, I think I said that the earlier session that Phi Beta Delta hosted on this, I think I mentioned this, but one of the most heartwarming things about this was Dr. Schrum, our president, was getting a little bit of negative feedback when the news came out about OSU doing this. And she asked me to comment on a letter that she was going to write to respond to some of these people who were commenting. And this line that she had in the letter was just so heartwarming. She said, look, these people might be different from us. They might be culturally different from us, but this is part of what being a land-grant university means. And so we're going to do this. And so I was just so heartened by her commitment to that. And then finally, I just threw this in at the slide at the last minute based on Dia's comment of curricularization. We'd really like to see how we can make this a part of our ongoing educational programs. And I know that there are faculty across campus who would be interested in this. And so I would invite your input on that, if there are ways that we could collaborate together. We do have Gabby, who is on our panel today. Gabby is actually a student in the Global Studies master's degree. And we don't have a track on refugee issues, but in fact, she's been very interested in that. But I would be interested in hearing from faculty across campus who would be willing to work with us on something like that. So I'm going to wrap it up at that point and stop sharing my screen, if I can figure out how. There we go. And I think, shall I just introduce Gabby?
Please.
So early in this effort, when we knew it was going to be a pretty substantial effort, we asked Gabby Nicholas, who was a student in the Global Studies program, if she would take the lead on the student side for this. And she has been working as a GA for both the campus housing as well as the liaison at School Global Studies to campus housing in this effort. As a result, she's been involved in many of the day-to-day activities. She's probably much closer to what's going on than I am. I kind of have a big picture view. Gabby is on the ground seeing actually what's going on. And so we've asked Gabby to reflect a little bit on her experience and what she's learned and what she's seen as part of this effort. So Gabby?
Thank you, Dr. Kluver, and I do just want to thank you for the opportunity to share and to be a part of this project. And it's been a privilege to get to relate with all the Afghans who've arrived here in Stillwater and get to live with them and experience a new way of life that they definitely weren't expecting, and to see them just show a lot of resilience and desire to make the best out of the situation. And so just kind of as I can just share just some stories as I've related with them, as Dr. Kluver's mentioned, there's 2 students that are here in college, started university, and it's I think the most interesting thing for them is they got a student ID that works as their bursar card, and so communicating that that's not a limitless credit card has been an interesting endeavor that we've had to figure out how to maneuver, just kind of working through logistics like that. And I would say we have, out of the 15 or 16 apartments on campus housing, probably 9 or 10 of them are families. And facilitating the public school situation has been very interesting because none of them have vehicles. Obviously, that's probably one of the last things to come. So driver's license has been something I've learned is a very difficult thing to acquire in the United States, especially in Oklahoma. We actually do not offer translation services for the driver's license test here in Oklahoma, which is something I've learned, where in other states you can utilize translation services. So the driver's license test in the state of Oklahoma is a test of your literacy and fluency in English. And so a big concern for parents has been getting their kids safely to and from school. And the bus system has worked great. Stillwater Public Schools has done a tremendous job of working with the families to facilitate that well. But certain, like pre-K, we learned when on the first day of school for a child that was going to pre-K that he can't ride the bus. So he got to school, but we got calls at 2:30 saying that he was not on the bus to return home from school because he wasn't old enough. And so just those kind of last minute, okay, we got to go get mom and go pick up kid from school and figure out alternative ways to get their son to school, and thinking through what does that mean when husband starts working and I have 2 other kids at home. How do I get my youngest child to school or my oldest child to school? So those are all the fun and not so fun details that we get to just figure out. But it's been, I just can't express how many people are always like, what can we do? What needs to be done? How can we help? And I think it's hard because sometimes we don't know how to tell people to help until those things hit us in the face. And we're like, oh, right, we definitely need some help in this area. And so definitely is just, as Dr. Kluver mentioned earlier, some people, there's been an overwhelming response for desire to help. And it will come. I know we haven't been able to identify all those needs yet, but it's only been really 3 or 4 months since the first Afghans have arrived here in Stillwater. And so this will be a long-term effort that all of those who want to volunteer and help will have the opportunity. So please do not give up and continue to persist in reaching out. There's a couple funny stories I have. I remember Walmart we've made a lot of trips to Walmart to grocery shop, and those have been very, very fun. I've learned some Pashto and Dari as we've gone to Walmart and tried to understand labels and fruits and vegetables and prices and payment cards and self-checkout, weighing items. It's been very fun. But one of the funniest experiences was I had 3 Pashto speakers and 1 Dari speaker, and one of the Pashto speakers also spoke Dari. And only the Dari speaker understood a little English. And so we're all 5 of us in the self-checkout at Walmart they had like 8 sour creams. And I'd been enough times to Walmart to know that they don't want sour cream, they want yogurt. And so I had to communicate through the little English that the Dari speaker knew, to communicate to the Dari Pashto speaker, to communicate to the Pashto speakers that they didn't want to buy those 8 sour creams. And so we had to also work with the cashier at Walmart to help us take all those off. But we were all laughing at the end of it because it was just this circle of like telephone. So we did successfully communicate that they did not want sour creams, and we got them all removed and then went and got yogurt. But just those little things happen all the time, and it just provides a lot of fun, just learning experiences. And they have been very patient and are much more willing to laugh than I would think I would be in the same situation. And they all are just learned a lot about what it means to be a family. They really value that family component and working together and being together. I can't take anyone anywhere without them inviting me over for tea or a meal, and so there's always open invitations. And so those are just a few stories. Dr. Kluwer, if there's anything else specifically you would like me to touch on, I'm sure I can come up with something, or if there's any other specific questions you would like me to address, I'd love to.
I think we'll move on to Lynn, who has some questions, but Gabby did catch me that I actually overstated our numbers. We have 70 Afghans in Stillwater, I think I might have said 70 families, but it's actually 70 Afghans, about 20 families within Stillwater. So Lynn, we'll just take it from there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to everyone for sharing with us your perspectives, your information. I do have a list of questions here that feel free for anyone to answer. A few of them are probably specifically targeted at you, Dean Kluwer. So we will start with those. Are we expecting more Afghan families to be coming to Stillwater?
So no, we're not. Catholic Charities all of the refugees who are coming to Oklahoma have arrived, either in Oklahoma City or Tulsa. There are still some who are waiting to be resettled in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. There might be 1 or 2 students who end up being settled in Stillwater, but we don't expect any more families to come to Stillwater. The Catholic Charities has this 90-day contract with the Department of State, and their 90-day contract will wind up around May 1st. So we don't anticipate any more, certainly families, but again, there might be some more students who find their way here, and we certainly hope they do. They're certainly welcome.
Excellent, thank you. One that I've been getting a lot of questions asked about is, are we anticipating that Stillwater will be hosting any of the refugees from the Ukraine? Do you have any enlightenment on that?
It's a guess. I would say probably not. And the reason I say that is because Catholic Charities is wrapping up operations in Stillwater. And so I know there's a big interest in it, and I get asked this question probably 5 to 10 times a day. But I don't think that Catholic Charities has any intention to send refugees to Stillwater. I do know, I have learned recently that the reason that we got so many refugees, Oklahoma received the third largest number of Afghans of any state. And part of the reason is because Governor Stitt lobbied for it. He wanted us to receive a large number of Afghan refugees. I think it's been a challenge for Catholic Charities to handle the numbers that they've had. And I think it's been a little overwhelming for them. And so I think that they will probably not be high on the list. So my guess is probably not. Certainly, again, they would be welcome, but I don't think that is likely to happen.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Tina did mention back channel that we have been getting requests for J visa scholars for scholars and faculty member from Ukraine. And I know at least one of those, an invitation has gone out. But that would be a little bit different sort of effort than we've been involved with the Afghans.
Excuse me. Thank you. Dia, I'd like to ask you, how does Every Campus a Refuge help in general resettlement issues?
So what we do is really offer supplemental case management services, which is probably what Gabby is doing right now. So ECAR chapters not only provide, and you all are doing exactly that, housing, so access to housing that's free, and then access to facilities, and then a community of support of trained and vetted volunteers. And those are faculty, staff, and students and community members. I'm sure it's the same case with you all. And they provide case management services as tasked by the resettlement agency. So it could be taking someone to the DSS, it could be taking someone to the DMV, it could be helping filling out a form. So general resettlement tasks, which are usually very heavy at the first, in the first period, usually 2 to 3 weeks of the family's arrival. And then after that, really we support with cultural, social, community support, right? So introducing them, orienting them to the city, to the resources in the city, orienting them and supporting them in accessing things that they enjoy on campus. We act as cultural brokers, mediators between them and other aspects of their experiences in our city and on our campus. We also become their family. And I suspect that that's what's happening with Gabby right now. And that's why in the impact study that we did, the top thing that the resettlement experience for refugees who are resettled on a campus or who are supported in their resettlement on a campus is that they feel like they belong. And I think it's because of the family sense that develops when they are supported by a community that lives close by, that's in their area, and that allows them to really enjoy and avail themselves of all of the resources that campuses have.
Oh, that's wonderful. So as I was listening to you talk earlier, I was wondering, you just touched on it a second, that students help host the families when they're here. Could you give us some examples of what the students are doing with them? And are they required to be enrolled in the minor to do so?
Right, those are excellent questions. So students do not have to be enrolled in the minor. If they're enrolled in the minor, they get credit for doing this work. But if they're not, anybody can be a volunteer, anybody in the community, they just have to be vetted, right? So everybody has to be background checked. If they're faculty or staff, that's already there, because faculty and staff are background checked, and students, and then community members, we background check. So that's because that's the resettlement agency standards, and we agree with that if you're interacting with folks, that we want to make sure that you have been cleared to do so. So anybody can be a volunteer, but you don't have to be in the minor. But students in the minor obviously do have to be volunteers, or they're not called volunteers. Technically, they're doing it for course credit. And the things that they do run the gamut. They welcome at the airport, they prepare the house, they fundraise, they provide translation or interpretation, they take folks grocery shopping, they provide EL tutoring, they help fill out forms, they walk with folks to the cafeteria and share meals with them. Anything that you can imagine that you might do with a guest who comes to your house and is hoping to learn more about your city and live there. And then very importantly, towards the end of their stay, we support them in finding suitable off-campus housing. And then we support them in the move, and then the volunteers stay connected with them beyond the move on goals that they've established for themselves, like getting a driver's license or maybe the GED or enrolling in college.
I have a feeling that by the time they're moving off campus, they're a member of the family.
Yes, yes. And in fact, at Guilford College, many families choose to move as close to campus as possible.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's nice. So they keep engaged with the campus at that point.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
You know, if I can, I want to follow up on something Dia said earlier, but one of the things I've seen out of this is having so many of the Afghans near and connected with OSU is so much better for them. If they go to a large city, they're spread out. They're you know, you have to find housing somewhere for them, and often it's a bad part of town, high crime rates, low rents. It's hard for them to get together. It's hard for them to come to classes. It's hard for them to get to their ESL programs. They have to rely on public transport. But, you know, I think of places like Stillwater or East Lansing, Michigan, or College Station, Texas, places like that that are fairly compact are ideal places where you've got all the resources of a large city, but in a much more compact form. And I really do. I would love to, Dia, if you've got actual data on the well-being of those who are welcomed by campuses, I'd love to see that, because anecdotally, I think that's what we've seen here.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that impact study with you. Another chapter that's evolving as an ECAR chapter is Washington State in Pullman, which I think is very similar to what you're describing, right? This compact city, but small enough, but enough resources to really sustain, engage refugees as they resettle. And it also builds the city, right? Doesn't it? I mean, it changes what the city can be.
Wonderful. Thank you. Gabby, were there any unexpected issues that came up that you thought, "Ooh, I wish we had thought about this before," or something that you experienced that we need to be thinking about for any future resettlement efforts?
Oh, there's so many. Some of them you would never think. Like one of them was the driver's license things. Some of them are just basic, kind of to the point of the housing. I think there were some initial thoughts that like making sure they weren't all in the same place just to give some space so that they didn't feel like they had to engage. But they, you know, it's been fun because as I've learned so much about how they lived in Afghanistan, and it's, you know, they live with brothers and brothers' kids and parents, and so there's a minimum of 20 people in a household. So just the transition, even though many of them are living in the same neighborhoods within, you know, a few square blocks, they're used to always having people. And so even the people that are in apartments very close to each other, it's too quiet. There's not enough people, there's not enough stuff going on. We feel very alone. And so even just the quietness of Stillwater that many of us really enjoy, that it's really just, there's not a lot of hustle and bustle. Because there's not a lot of people in one house, it's very difficult for them to feel at peace in the midst of everything else that's already going on. So I think that at least an emotional and mental level has been one that's been really draining for a lot of them. And many of them are here, and all of their family is still in Afghanistan. They are here alone. And so they're constantly reminded of their families that are back home. So those are kind of big, deeper things that just the weight of those. So finding a job immediately. They understand English will be important for long term, but not having a source of income is constant. Every day they wake up going, I can't help my family. And so that's been something like jobs first thing, even minimal or no English, let's figure out how to get them some sort of work. But to the point, English is absolutely necessary and important for their long-term just well-being here in the United States. And a lot of them acknowledge that and know that, but it's not the most immediate need. And so kind of just trying to figure out how to balance those has been important. And so I think those would be some key things. Then there's always the minor things of, you know, just using ovens and heaters and air conditionings and not using them at the same time with your windows open. Just some of those little things that when you grow up with them, you just know. And if you didn't, then it's all new. So this time of year is always fun, and because there's days when it's 30 and then it's 80. And so do you have the heat on or the air conditioning on, and are your windows open? And sometimes they're all three going at the same time. And so just trying to figure all that out and communicate that, especially when many don't speak English. And so organizing, how do I tell this to this person without wearing out the 2 or 3 people that can translate for us? So those are all just the day in and day out things we get to work through.
Sounds like
So
it's been a wonderful experience for you.
it has.
Great. So Dean Kluver, you had mentioned this May 3rd important date. What's going to happen on May 3rd? What's the ongoing issues that we perhaps could help with or prepare for?
So Catholic Charities has this 90-day window to get people initially settled, get them in an apartment, deal with immediate needs. They get them set up for SNAP benefits, sooner care. So a lot of that basic needs is met at that point. But after 90 days, that contract expires. And so in a larger city like Oklahoma City, there's other organizations that there's basically a handoff, and they say, okay, here are these people, here's where they are, here are their ongoing needs. In Stillwater, we don't have that agency. So it's everything from making sure that their SNAP benefits are renewed on time to dealing with medical issues that come up, because, there's just so many cultural things that we know because we live here and we get that don't make, are not evident to the refugees. Dealing with ongoing mental health issues, trauma issues. There's just so many things that have to happen. Some will have jobs by the end of that 90 days, many won't. And so there's just a lot of things that need to continue to happen that normally there's a process in place in a larger city. Stillwater doesn't have that. And Our Daily Bread, they've been phenomenal. They have really worked with us and have been terrific. But their prime mission is helping with food security issues, but they're not really set up to do all these other things. Now we're talking with them about possibly partnering in some of these kinds of things, but also just some of the issues that Gabby hinted at are really critical. Loneliness, right? And it's one thing to be here with an immediate family, but now you miss your longer family. And anyone who's lived overseas understands what that's like, even if you're not a refugee. But what if you're here alone and your entire family is gone? And so a lot of that initial flurry of activity, as that subsides, is where a lot of the long-term problems really begin. I am interested in seeing everyone who's come to Stillwater stay in Stillwater. And we can't tie them down. We can't bind them to it, but we can make them successful so that Stillwater does become a place where they want to stay. And so, everything from just building friendships, building relationships, continuing to navigate the very complex cultural environment, continuing to navigate the bureaucracy, making sure that your rent is paid on time, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole host of issues that are, I guess, within the Refugee Resettlement Committee are called the wraparound services that Stillwater doesn't have the mechanism for. So of course we know that the volunteers who've been so involved are not going to go away. Although Catholic Charities contract will end, the people from the community who've been involved in this are deeply committed to it. And we know that they will stay involved, but how do you do that in an organized way? So for example, somebody needs to go to a doctor's appointment. Well, who do you get to take them to the doctor's appointment, right? And because other people have lots of different demands. And so we've actually had lots of issues of people being taken to the wrong doctor's appointment, or the wrong people taking them to the appointment, or crossed wires. You've got 3 people showing up to take somebody to the doctor's appointment. So there's a lot of coordination that we need to continue to work through.
Certainly sounds like we need something like e-car. So what is required? Dia, I'm going to go back to you. What is required or would be expected to join a network like e-car or Every Campus a Refuge?
Thank you for that question. I do want to follow up though on something that Randy said. Usually the first 3 months are considered the honeymoon phase because it is sort of exciting and people are discovering, and then they then, as you say, it sinks in, right, that you're not with your family. I think one of the really important things that we learn, as Gabby has mentioned, from refugee resettlement is that resettlement does not mean the end of your misery, right? Like the fact that you've arrived somewhere and have resettled somewhere, right, which is one of the 3 durable solutions for refugees, sometimes is not really a solution. Sometimes it's incredibly pain-filled, and it behooves us to not think of refugees as folks who should just, like, oh, now you're here, now you're safe, this must be the end of your troubles, right? That it's actually, it can be an incredibly sad and lonely experience to be here and to be separated from your family, because it's never a choice, right? Being a refugee is not a choice. But in terms of joining an e-car network, so the campus is doing exactly what OSU is doing. An e-car campus offers housing. On a traditional e-car campus, this housing is free of charge. And so it's not, the whole point is to make sure that the family is not spending their welcome funds. It's called the Welcome Fund, this $1,025 that each member in a family gets. So, or their R&P funds. So to save those funds, the campus provides living expenses and housing expenses for several months so that the family achieves the mission is a stronger landing and a softer beginning. A stronger beginning and a softer landing for refugees. And so providing those resources and allowing refugees access, giving them access to facilities, providing a community of support that is vetted and trained, and they sign confidentiality agreements, and a partnership with the Refugee Resettlement Agency. So I think to Randy's point, because Catholic Charities is closing shop, that'll be interesting to see. I do know, Randy, and I don't know if you've talked about this or have considered this, that for a while, or there still exists this APA program, which is remote placement, right, for Afghan individuals. And I wonder if that will continue to be the case for refugees who are coming, and there might not be a refugee resettlement agency within 100 miles or within whatever miles of a college or university, but they can still be placed there and supported through a mechanism that creates a partnership, but really depends more on the campus to do the work. And you all have just had sort of the trial by fire. You already know that experience, and you've just learned so much on how to do it by yourself. And certainly you will learn more of that on May 3rd. But I'm hopeful that our refugee resettlement program in itself will create new models, because we cannot continue in this way, right? We cannot keep simply reacting to these crises and scrambling. So there has to be a different system in how we do refugee resettlement. There has to be different pathways for refugee resettlement. And I'm hoping that the pathways that emerge galvanize and mobilize and empower campuses to act as resettlers and supporters of resettlement in more independent ways, right? Still in partnership with resettlement agencies, but perhaps in a different model.
Thanks for that, Dia. One thing that is particularly pressing with the Afghans, of course, and I'm reminded of it, is the legal status. They're technically not here on refugee status. They're here as parolees, which means they have to file a petition for refugee status within a year of being in the U.S. And otherwise, they really are in danger of being sent out of the U.S. Well, that's a long, complicated, and unfortunately costly process. And, there are a few pro bono attorneys across the state who are doing this. University of Tulsa's law school has taken this on for all of the Afghans who've come through Eastern Oklahoma. And we're so incredibly grateful for them, because otherwise, their legal status here is very, very dubious. And that's one of the things that somebody needs to see through. And you know, maybe Congress will fix that. I doubt it. So, but thanks, Dia. That's all really helpful.
So one last question on all of this. A lot of the things seem very involved and maybe a bit too much work for me to do, but is there another way that the community, either OSU community or Stillwater community, can help? I remember last time Walmart gift cards were a thing that we shouted out for. Is there something like that, Dean Kluwer, that would continue to help?
The gift cards are always helpful, right? Because now most folks are here and they're on state support for SNAP benefits, and so they're getting some food benefits. But you know, there are those costs that that SNAP doesn't pay for, and so that's always helpful. Any help finding meaningful employment? Stillwater Medical Center has hired a number of the Afghans. Chick-fil-A. Kudos to them because they've hired a number of them. Several have been hired on campus, but everybody, as Gabby said, everybody wants a job because they have families back in Afghanistan. The ELIC relies on volunteers to help with conversational English 3 times a week. A number of OSU faculty and staff participate in that, but if you could give up, you know, an hour a week to come over to the West Watkins Center and work with some of the Afghans and just, you know, help them with their English, that would be tremendously useful. You know, there are so many needs. Some of them are going to need GED assistance. They're going to need to complete a GED at some point. They're going to need to get a driver's license. And one person can't handle all those needs for all those people. And so it might be just coming alongside one family. And each of the families has been assigned somebody in Stillwater to help with them, but that hasn't always gone well. And so I think there's just always a need for someone to come along and say, how can I help this week? You know, maybe I can take them to the Himalayan grocery store, or I can take them to Walmart to do some shopping. All of those things are useful. And again, we don't really have a very good mechanism for processing that. This is one of the things Gabby has been so incredibly helpful for, is because she kind of knows on a daily basis what's happening with everybody and what the needs are. So I think there's still tremendous need, both for kind of the abstract, here's a $50 Walmart gift card, as well as the very personal, I'll come on for an hour and help somebody in an English class or something like that.
That's wonderful. And if we wanted to help or contribute in some way, who could we get in touch with, or how would that happen?
So my email address is randy.kluver@okstate.edu. You'd be more than welcome to reach out to me, or sgsp@okstate. And then, you know, if it's something that, I'll do my best to try to put you in touch with the right person to connect with that. I do want to, I said this earlier, but, you know, Steph Link and Michael Amory and their colleagues in the ELIC have just been heroes in this effort. I can't say enough good things about what they've done and how they've responded to this need, because they've done far more than just doing ESL. They have gotten deeply immersed in this, and I very much appreciate that. And so I want to do everything I can to support them as well. And so the assistance with the ESL is critical. So yeah, Gabby, maybe you have other ideas as well.
Another wonderful practical need is rugs.
Rugs.
If you all would like to purchase rugs or donate funds for them to buy rugs, they would love rugs. So I've been shared. One family actually chose not to bring clothes and brought 2 of their rugs from home, and very, very special. They really cherish, well, their rugs. And so any rugs that can fill their homes would be just a very special gift for them.
So are these like room size rugs we're talking about, or can
Any size?
Any
They
size
can be
rug?
smaller, big, but yes, they would love to. Even if they have carpet, it would, any space will be a rug.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
Thank you. Okay, well, we've got just 1 minute left for time's up. If there's anything else anyone wants to say, I truly thank you for this conversation. This has been enlightening, inspiring, informative. I think it really gives us some ideas of where we might want to go as a campus in the future. So Dia, thank you so much for letting us know about every e-car, every campus of refuge. I think that's fascinating and good work you're doing. Gabby, thank you so much for being there on the ground with all of these wonderful Afghan families and for telling us about your experiences. And to Dean Kluver, thank you for helping us put this together this evening. And thank you to everyone for watching. So have a good evening.
Thanks so much.